All right, guys, welcome. This is a very special event. This is a pre-recorded weekly assault where we're going to be answering questions from the community. And these questions we gather through the forums and Reddit.
Pre-recorded live.
Pre-recorded live. And with me, I have lead game designer Jeff Gregg.
Hello.
He has volunteered to sit down with us in this two-part series. So we're going to answer a couple questions in the season. And then next week, we're going to answer more.
I'm right in the crosshairs.
Ooh, cha-choo.
Fire away. Oh, also, if you see me looking down a lot, I got cheat sheets because you guys had some really good questions. I wanted to make sure I gave everything its due. So there you go.
Research.
So I apologize ahead of time for doing that kind of thing.
All right, let's start with question number 1. This is actually coming from Reddit, and it comes from player Cisco. Will World of Tanks console ever see a transition from the in-battle ribbon system to a star counter similar to what's on PC?
Well, okay, so little preamble is on some of these, the ones I chanced to write down, I have a short answer and a long answer because I understand some people like concise answers. Second is, again, like I said before, I didn't write down everything. So if it gets a little more loosey-goosey, I apologize ahead of time.
Loosey-goosey.
The short answer in this one is don't plan on seeing it anytime soon, Cisco. But there's more to it than that. The long answer is the in-battle ribbons, like the system you see in the upper, this is my right hand, on your screen. The original genesis of that feature before it even appeared on the console version was we wanted like essentially a scoreboard. And we wanted a scoreboard of XP and silver so that you knew exactly when you did a thing, whether it's get a base cap point or shoot a dude or spot a dude or whatever. Hey, that was worth 250 million silver and 1 XP, to use stupid numbers. We couldn't do that because all those numbers are influenced at the very end of the match, right? Like you get a tabulation, and then at the very end, based on premium account status, win or loss, the tier of the enemies you fought, if any friendly fire or friendly damage was inflicted, like if somebody drowned somebody or pushed someone off a cliff, if an enemy foe committed suicide and you were all remunerated for that on the green team, didn't work, right? It would just be a dental-ized. That's not your question. I'm just giving you context to the current ribbon system. So we could tell you an event happened. We couldn't tell you exactly how much it's worth. What you're talking about in terms of damage caused, assistant, blocked, so on and so forth, sounds like a really cool feature. We would need to decide how and if to communicate the assistance systems and why sometimes it's a bigger number than others. Like a classic example is if Arlette is spotting for me and I shoot with my TD a bad guy, because you spotted. You did me a solid. We're both gonna get assisted damage, right? Because she's doing it, and I'm gonna see a smaller number than if I was just shooting it directly without spotting assistance. We fully anticipate that if we did that, some people would be like, "Why is it smaller this time?" And I would want to be able to explain that to clear out confusion. Because keep in mind, Cisco and everybody, you guys are pro players. A lot of our players are not pros. Insert potato joke here, but they're good players that don't go onto the forums, that don't do stuff, and it is our job as game designers and game developers to make sure all that stuff is as clear as possible on the screen, and we never really found a good solution for that. Another big part is we are a console game where you're supposed to, well, play however you want, but we typically target someone who's sitting 7-ish feet away on a couch on a big screen.
Limited amount of time.
Yeah, and also helping their team win or lose, which is the ultimate goal on any of our random battles, right? Is like the team victory must win. And there's already a ton of information on the HUD, and having to put even more information on the HUD to explain and clutter up what is a really good looking game and interfere with targeting or whatever, blah, 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 blah. That's why we haven't done it yet and why I wouldn't count on planning on seeing it on anything soon.
Awesome. Great answer, Jeff. Okay, we're going to move on to Camps Michael. And his question is, will we ever see a point-based system, perhaps even through ranked battles that give away tier 10 clan reward tanks? I think being able to earn points from multiple sources would help break the elitism inherent in clan war tanks.
Awesome. The short answer is I'm glad you like them, and we thought a lot about that. Have nothing in the short term, have not stopped designing. The long answer is we've actually gone through a lot of different iterations on a system or systems like this that aren't just the point-based rewards you're referring to. Something that is more clan-based, more for the pro players that are starting to gather as communities, the people I assume that are watching this. None of the designs have really stuck for various reasons. We've even had one that was kind of called factions that wasn't just clans, but clans helped reinforce a faction that you would either be put into or join. That's just kind of some details of some what are now crufty, antiquated systems that we are no longer going forward with. But we haven't given up. Because we look at like fun activities like Tank Magnus and everything to help with our pro players and our reoccurring player base. Everyone, you guys and gals that are playing. And we do have a system that is currently targeting the end of this fiscal year, but like all of those other systems that I just told you about, we're not gonna ship it if it ain't good. So right now it really is in documentation and talks and meetings phase. So there's not even enough really to tell you about it, except like we wanna make it something cool and special versus just poop it out there.
All right. Ederson, why would we only seem to be getting reskins and painted premium tanks instead of unique console content?
Do me a favor and ask the next question too, because my answer applies to both.
Okay. Oh, ask it again as well?
No, ask the free from compulsion question. My answer covers both. Add
Okay.
Zero and free from compulsion.
And free from compulsion, what is the long-term plan for World of Tanks to keep bringing new players in? Myself and others have spent a lot of money in the game with premium tanks and premium time, and I would like to know if this game is worth investing in the long run.
There are things I want to tell you that are coming very, very soon. Actually, when are they watching this?
They are watching this in 2 weeks.
Okay, today is April 12th.
12th.
All right, so very soon, both of these questions, when are we going to see some unique console content, and what are the long-term plans for World of Tanks on the console? You're all going to go, oh, wow! And that's all I can say about that.
Yeah, okay. Well, again, I wanted to make sure that I ask you every question. I know some questions are kind of limited, others are kind of going to the point, but we're trying to be as transparent and also bring you all the questions players would like to ask you.
That's part of the reason like the other ones are so verbose and wordy, and I'm sorry if you're getting bored of me flapping my lips. But that one, there are big initiatives that I really can't talk any more about than I already have. This year's going to be exciting.
Yay. X Hero for a day. When is the next large-scale balance pass? Your game needs some balancing. It shows even further when you introduce additional tanks that should not be on on tech trees. There you go.
All right, X Hero for a day. You got a whole page. This is a really good question.
That is the question that gets the page.
Yes, you get the page. Dun, dun, dun. So I really appreciate your candor, and you're just coming right at it with that question. The honest numerical answer is that it is not horrifyingly poorly balanced. I mean, we can go into details on what to you horrifyingly balanced means. I would actually love that kind of conversation if time ever permitted, or if we had more time to do videos or whatever. We do have a balance pass scheduled soon that I think is going to hit, I'm going to say 4.6 at this point. Not that we don't do iterative balance passes and iterative edits in between now and then. We do regular balance scrubs to fix spot issues, as well as balance passes like I think you were referring to, where multiple things get touched or decided to be left alone. Like I said, I appreciate your candor, and there are always, another thing I'll say, tanks and maps that do need adjustment. I mean, there are a ton of tanks, there are a ton of maps, and every time we introduce anything new or change anything that introduce risk, which we try to mitigate with play testing and machines that do some analysis and all sorts of good stuff. Sometimes it squeaks through even past all that stuff. If you're really curious about the exact process on that, there is a YouTube video that I recorded a while ago. I encourage you to watch that.
It's on our YouTube channel.
There you go. It's on our YouTube channel, and I encourage you to watch that if you haven't. Another thing that's really interesting that I'll point out is I looked up your account. You're a really good tanker, and you love yourself some tanks, but you're better than the average player. Assuming X Hero for a day is the same as Hero for a day. Full transparency, I couldn't find an X Hero for a day, but I found a Hero for the day. A perfectly balanced game. Let's imagine if we achieved the impossible. Absolute perfect balanced game. If we achieved that, that means you would lose 50% of your matches, no matter what you did, because the machine would know your skill set, the tanks you're using, what you've equipped it, what everybody else has done, and will match everybody as perfectly as it can based on the current population, and even know all 30 of those players in that match it just made, what their previous win-loss was, to try to reinforce as much as possible 50% win, 50% lose. And not only that, like on the map, it should always be basically team 1 loses 50%, team 2 loses 50%. A lot of variables there. When I tell people that, they go kind of, ugh, because you know what I mean? Like, I'm better than 50%. I'm better than, you know, all the potatoes. And I'll challenge some of our designers. And it's like, but there's people that are way better than me. I also looked at my stats. I'm not that great compared to a lot of people. But that's the reality. And that is something that we strive for in maps and everything, but we'll never, ever hit it statistically. There's too many variables going on. It's not an excuse. It's an explanation. Another thing I'll point out, because you talked about, I believe you called them additional reskins, either of tech trees or other premiums. We make those, and those are on the field, and you're seeing those and fighting either with them or against them because the players want them. And how do we know that? I mean, they're being purchased. They're being played a lot after they're purchased. There is feedback on the forums in channels like this of people saying like, how do I use this tank better? How do I use this to work? Is it worse? Is it worth my money? And then you'll see, yes, no, I hate wargaming. I love wargaming. You know, you'll see all that kind of stuff. At least I do. And a very specific example I'll use is if you remember the Final Four in Tank Madness, people were chomping at the bit. I'm going Germany for the Tiger 1 hammer, or I'm going for the Liberté, or I'm going for the Legion Patton, or I'm going for the Freedom, depending on which nation you backed. And what happened? I mean, if you're a forum lurker, like what happened when China won? Congratulations to all the China nation players, by the way. It was like a riot. Like
fake news. The numbers are fakes. You guys are rigging this. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, and
nonstop.
All of the rigging complaints and all like that. I'm going to acknowledge that happened, but really the base of it, that at least I was reading, and not all of them. Never say all because that's never true. Is God damn it, where was my free tank? And all of those tanks were tanks that you're referring to, that the demand went so through the roof that they table flipped our forums in a riot and on our Facebook pages and everything.
Yep.
So, I mean, that is both qualitative and quantitative proof that these tanks are desirable and people are enjoying them. And they are balance-wise supposed to fit right into commiserate of all the balance that we do. And when they don't, we tweak them. Thanks, again, thank you very much for the candor of that question. I hope that I did that bluntness service with a good answer that at least you understand, even if you don't disagree, or even if you don't agree with.
Heat 54, when will we see additional quality of life improvements, like additional zoom settings, last known location on the mini-map? That's a big request, actually. Render range, circle, damage panel, repair wheel, hotkeys, cursor selection, enemy tank HP values, that's a long list. Artillery view, battle mode selection. These all have been available on PC for many years now. None of these are mods, by the way. All vanilla.
I'm gonna rattle right through. I think you cheated. I think it said one question per person. And,
I think his question was covering all of these, but
you went wide.
No, yeah,
I admire
know.
that Heat 54.
He knew how to word it.
yeah, like comma will go a long way, right? Zoom currently no plan. I'm gonna just rattle through with honest stuff. Zoom currently no plans. Issue, since we stick click, anytime you have more than 2, you're always potentially 2 stick clicks away from the actual zoom you want, and we haven't put in any options of determine maximum zoom. Last known location on minimap, we're actually looking into that. It does have resolution issues. Keep in mind all of the hardware we have to support, and that we always strive on console games to be even regardless. That's one of the benefits of the console game, is you don't spend $10 billion on your internet and PC and have or use mods and have a completely different experience from anyone else. Render range circle, we already show you on the minimap like how far you can see, how far you can be seen, and how far your shot's gonna go. I Googled this to see if we were talking about something differently, but if you mean like the absolute max threshold of view, the hardware limit of when that stops, we have no plans to add that right now. And if I'm misunderstanding the question, you had a lot of stuff here, so I apologize for misreading that one. Damage panel, I also looked at that on the PC version. It's very similar to my comment before about the damage, blocked, assisted, and all that stuff. That's more numbers on the HUD, and that's going to start fighting for everybody's screen space and their attention. And currently there are no plans to just clutter up the HUD with more of that stuff, as useful as you may think it is. Repair wheel hotkeys. I will tell you there's no plans for hotkeys, but we are looking into repairing the repair wheel itself, starting with the dead zone, because I think because the dead zone is kind of garbage, I'll just straight say it, you might accidentally pick the wrong thing, but You will also notice that on the controller, regardless of which piece of hardware you're holding, every single button is claimed now. So a hotkey would have to give something else up.
Or develop a controller with more buttons.
or do Connect on Xbox, like Xbox, repair my tracks. Cursor selection, there's no mouse on the console, unless I really grossly misunderstood what your question was. Enemy tank HP values, there's actually concepts of what this could look like and be realized right now as I'm chatting with you. Keep in mind that on the console version, you don't see the entirety of the team's health bars, you see your current target. So if you see the entire enemy team, if you see 15 tanks coming at you, you don't see 15 life bars. So the life bars you see are the ones we're gonna modify. RD view, working on it. It has control issues very similar, well, not similar, but control issues relating to out of buttons. So we're trying to figure out how to go from strategic to artillery shell back and forth, as well as zooming in the artillery mode because we don't have the mouse wheel. All that good stuff's being discussed. Battle mode selection is just another piece of the puzzle that the matchmaker would have to deal with, and would likely be something we'd have to have only available at really high population times to make sure everybody can get in there and earn the XP and silver they want. I wouldn't expect that anytime soon. I hope that that's complete enough for you. There you go.
Ta-da-da-da! TB got anarchy. An actual answer on how tanks haven't been nerfed and not just rendering to your stats. There is no justification for a tank like the Waffle that can end anyone's game in seconds. No amount of drawbacks make that a fun or engaging mechanic. Or how console is different enough from PC where 850 Alpha TDs and 275 FP215B 183 pen is okay. What have we done wrong to not deserve the same balance changes PC has done forever? That is a very interesting question.
No, it's a good one. It's basically how come we're not identical to PC, with very specific examples of how come these pieces of vehicles are, or pieces of vehicles, these specific stats on these vehicles is the way they are. There is always a chance, depending on what vehicle you're in and what vehicle is going to shoot you, greater in some cases, I grant you, that you're going to be one and done, or you're going to one and done some fool. Even if you have tier parity, even if you're a higher tier than the enemy, because they don't have preferred matchmaking, you're in a tier 10, you see a tier 8, and you start doing this kind of job, you're going to blast them away. They could ammo rack you. It is possible. There is an interesting, I can't pronounce your name, TB Anarchy, is that correct? There is a intonation in your question that I'm right, these are mistakes, you should fix it. And the reason I'm pulling it out to you is if I say, actually, we continually monitor those tanks because they come up all the time. And based on the amount of times they one-hit you, or the amount of times that they have efficacy and victories and so on and so forth, they aren't worth adjusting. That I just think you're probably throwing your hands up right now and calling me some sort of explicative name. And I actually respect that. It never feels good to either be shot once and destroyed, or see something you think is a real concern and then have one of the guys in charge tell you, I ain't touching that. But I'm also going to be really honest with you that if any of these vehicles you mentioned were just wrecking rhymes with hit on all of the battlefield and just like 80% win rate, it doesn't always have to be that high, you know what I mean? And then just like indomitable forces, we would change it. And
something would have been done by now.
Yeah, whether or not you believe me, that's not the case. And I know every time I get hit by one of these things and I pop, I go and I look, I'm like, this thing's terrible. This thing is destroying our ecosystem. And actually, no, that's relatively okay. You know, another thing I do, and again, I'm not the greatest player, is I go use that tank and I go, and then I die instantaneously because I don't have the skills.
You tried.
I tried.
You tried. The next question is box, but I think it was you already answered. Do you want me to ask and see if maybe you can add to it, or?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
You've said his name. Let's get the question out there. Or her name.
Yeah, Isbox, will we ever see the UI quality of live enhancements that the PC has had for years, such as damage ledger, incoming damage directional notifications, etc.?
We already have incoming damage that you took. If you're referring to incoming damage as coming from a direction, that's really interesting. And I believe I covered the damage ledger in a previous question from Cisco, I think it was. And see, I told you I'd be looking at this stuff. It's a different beast, this HUD. I mean, it's for a console. It's from 360 to Xbox One X and PS4 Pro. And we are looking at different things to do to modify the HUD based on feedback we're getting. I think a classic example, as much as it's controversial, and I risk bringing the gods down on me by bringing this up, is the capture bar, capture circle stuff we've done. And then we take that feedback and we decide what we're going to do or what we're not going to do as we move forward. So I hope that answers your question. You think I answered this question? Okay.
All right. This gamer tag is fantastic. Barinicia? He's from Reddit. Sorry.
Barrenechea. If we mispronounce that, I apologize.
What is the technical issue stopping personalized paint jobs for camo?
I'd love to have that. Probably the biggest one is interface. And the second one is UI time. Our UI for the garage, you'll notice, is built for the controller. It's on a grid-based system with the radial chiclets. You don't have a mouse pointer. We have talked about like just crazy pants, like, oh, let's replicate Photoshop, or you can paint materials and send it into wargaming and then downloads to everyone's console and you can make whatever you want. Ignoring all the rude gestures people make on their tanks, it's mostly interface and UI engineering time.
9x19. Can you go into the algorithm for the damage standing calculation? Many, including myself, have found it quite frustrating at times. An explanation of the mechanic may help us understand why there can be any significant variance in percentage. How does the metric work? Is it constantly updating? And what are the factors that contribute how easy or difficult it is? I mean, you can answer it, but I was also going to suggest that maybe we should do a video.
Oh yeah, you have not. Who is this person?
9x19.
9x19. Man, you have not asked a simple question.
Yeah.
And we are in an area of this document where I haven't written myself some cheat sheets. Okay. This is not going to fully, completely answer your question. I think going into this more in a later time might be worth it, but I'll give you the cliff notes. Shells, when they travel, they essentially consider two different ranges. There is the range that they do the maximum amount of pen. I'm going to use just funny numbers. These aren't real numbers, but let's say 0 to 100, it's a maximum pen. And then from 100 to max distance, there's a fall off on your chance of pen to simulate and also calculate, like, you know, as a shell traverses, it's going to it's going to fall to the ground essentially, right? And we don't make you worry about shell drop and all that stuff. And longer distance targets, the armor is probably going to have more efficacy to bounce that shell and all that kind of stuff. All right, once it pens, let's say it pens, there is, depending on whether it hit the turret or whether it hit the hull or whatever it hit, the tracks, the chassis, you name it, spaced armor is another big one. And if it was an HE versus an AP versus heat, it does a bunch of calculations that actually deflects based on the normal they hit inside of the tank. And while it does basically a plus minus percentage based on the damage of that shell to either the turret or the hull once it passes through, assuming it hits those collision boxes, it is now also checking, do I hit any of the modules? Did I pass through a crew member? Did I pass through an engine? Did I pass through the ammo rack? So on and so forth. When those are getting hit, there is a bunch of math depending on whether or not it actually damages it, which is calculated through a percentage chance based on the normal of the impact, as well as did this person have any skills or perks that are going to help or hinder that situation from either end, the attacker or the recipient. Was there spall lining? You know, all of that. God, I think skills, perks, and equipment consumables are probably the biggest chunks that have a bunch of details that go into that kind of math. And then there are also specific modules that when they hit, they tell the shell essentially keep on doing your thing, or when they hit, they say, you're done, shell. And the reason we do that is to make sure that like one shell won't like ping pong and kill an entire crew with one hit. Or multiple shells can kill all the crew. That's actually only happened to me like a handful of times. Does that happen to you where the whole crew's dead and your tank just goes, and you're like, what? And then you see the text, crew's dead. And I'm like, oh, this whole intact tank. Yeah, like sad tuba plays out of it. That's super high level. That's not going to give you everything you want. We'll probably come back to that, but I hope that at least scratches the surface.
Yeah, definitely would like to work on some video. I wouldn't call them training videos, but, you know, just explaining certain aspects of the game that require a lot of explanation and data to kind of give them a brief overall of how certain things work,
Yes.
I guess. Inappropriate gamer tag that I'm not going to repeat. When are you going to add
Whoa.
some maps that aren't 3-lane concrete jungles?
What's the last 3-lane concrete jungle we did? I mean, we're using hyperbole here.
I was thinking Paris, but no.
I don't know. I think we do have a really cool variety of like urban and rural. Like the
Yeah, I
know
was
it's
going to
been a
say,
while,
what
but,
is
like,
the ratio of urban, summer?
You know, I know it was a long ago when the Mark 1 event happened, but I'm thinking of Thiepful Ridge.
Yeah, that's.
And I'm like, Jesus, this is a giant sprawl of lush jungle. At a normal cadence, I guess. He who shall not be named. I'm going to call you Voldemort. If you ask that question, you know who you are and you know why we're avoiding your handle. Let's go to the next question, you think?
Yeah, let's go. Jenny, Jeff, when, if, will trade-ins for premium tanks for credit towards other premium tanks will be coming? I thought I read that there was a new concept introduced on PC version.
All right, so what we're talking about is I buy tank A for, let's say, 1,000 gold. And I'm like, all right, if I trade in tank A to get tank B, I will get N gold towards that purchase. There are no plans to do that right now. What you can do is sell that premium tank for half of its old. You could sell it for half of its gold equivalent in silver, and then use that silver for whatever you want it for. I know that won't help you get another premium tank, but yeah, for premium tank trade-ins, there are no plans for that right now.
Ty-Shirel1, is there any plans to give an incentive for new players to start playing? I have noticed when I play, especially at mid-tiers, there is a lack of players, usually leading to unfavorable matchups.
Yes, there is. So stuff that we've done is War Stories was actually a big initiative, both for, hey, new players. If you're kind of intimidated by having 29 other people that really know what they're doing, just juicing you in a game where there's no respawn and there's very highly technical aspects to like the damage like we talked before and the pen and the fall off and the angle of your armor and all that stuff. Come experience it a little bit in the War Stories and be a hero tank and then maybe transition into multiplayer. That was also for a reacquisition initiative as well as it's just cool. But like I know there's some players that are like, you know what, I haven't played World of Tanks for a while. Hey, there's this new War Story. I'm gonna go check it out. Like and like for the like for instance Potemkin, which just came out. You're like, I want a super high tier arty, which honestly is balanced for War Stories. The thing's a demon. If you haven't played Potemkin and you like SPGs, check it out. That is a great spot for new players to come in. That's not going to solve what you're specifically asking about in terms of low pop on mid tiers. I don't know when you play. I will say that if you look at the activity of tiers, it's kind of a bell curve. I think 5 to 8 is the butter zone, and because people tend to want to climb out of the lower tiers. And then once you start getting into like the Shermans and the BDR G1B, which I know a lot of people hate, but I love that tier 5 French heavy, and all that good stuff. And then when you get to tier 8, which is the high watermark for the premium tanks, a lot of activity there. The incentive is to climb there. We've actually started to think about better ways to encourage you to grind up to there and to say, hey, you're on your way up. Good job, you. That stuff is coming out soon, I believe. Like, you remember some of those initiatives I was talking about? And that'll help with new players. Another thing we had a long time ago is the initial player experience, which is called IPX, which if you're a pro, and if you've been with us from the beginning, you've never seen. Because it's specifically for brand new players. If you are a brand new player, and if you really want to try this, make like an Xbox Live Silver account, although I'm not telling you to spam Microsoft with fake accounts, or a PS account. That was not official. Don't do that. Don't do that. And then check it out, and you can see if you're a brand new player and you pick multiplayer versus War Stories, you can see what they get taught. And actually, if you see that, you could even give us feedback. I'm a new player, or I'm a seasoned player, and I saw what you're teaching new players, and it might be a little bit better if you do this.
If you do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a great idea, actually. Next question comes from Butt Cheek Llama. Is there any tangible plans to give us something to do with our XP on elite premium tanks?
Convert it, or convert it into your crews. Beyond free up that XP so that you can get yourself some sweet whatever you want to do with it. No, that's what it's for.
Maximus92, when will console get the tier 9 or 10 reward tanks? whether for purchase or earnable.
C earlier when I talked to the double answer for add Zero using my cheat sheet and free from compulsion. Exciting stuff's coming.
Inappropriate gamer tag. Will we ever get any new tank lines for Japan?
You said inappropriate take.
No, yeah, no.
That guy.
Yeah, I changed it actually right there, but it's still inappropriate. So yeah, just scratch it off.
All right, it's scratched off.
I scratched your notes. I'm sorry.
The Japanese tank line. What do you want to see? Like, what do you want to see? Like an artillery for the Japanese? I don't even know if they had such a thing, or TDs. Or...
They've been asking for tanks for Swedish, Czech, and Japan because they are actually in need of some love.
We are looking at, I mean, we add tanks all the time. The line expansions, like the newest one that pops in my head, forgive me if this isn't the newest when this airs, is the Chinese TD line. So we do add lines. Adding tanks is not cheap, nor something we want to shoot from the hip. Those are the machines that are in random battle all the time, and they have to kind of be right, part and parcel to the previous balance question. And we also need to make sure if anything gets away from us that we have enough time to react and fix as quickly as we can. We'll consider it. I do agree that those 3 lines are the thinnest lines because I'd be a fool to tell you your numbers are wrong. They're correct. If you want a silver lining, those are the easiest nations to get the engineer medal, which always feels cool if you've researched an entire line. I know, like when I had the entire Chinese line researched and then the TDs come, I'm like, no, and I got to do those now to get it back. Like, so that's the way it works.
Why me?
So there you go.
I think the next question you already answered, but out of courtesy for the player posting it, we'll read it again. Jagged Metal, PC and Blitz show both teams, green and red, info at all times on the battlefield. Tank type, tag tier, health bar, etc. Why is it not on console? It would make it so much easier than to have to rotate the sight gun in the direction of each tank to know the information. Please implement this. If people don't want it, then simply make it a setting or option. This is the thing that bothers me the most in World of Tanks console. Thank you.
I've talked a lot about like the busyness of the screen, and I really do appreciate wanting to see all that information. It now becomes a balance of like how many people want this and is it worth the investment time. I'm not telling you your desires aren't worth it if you're reading that. That's not what I mean at all. It just means that all of these worthy, desirable, cool things have to be balanced against everything else. Like one thing that would be really interesting and unfortunate is if we added all of those features and this all at one and then the HUD just got crushed.
Right.
So that would be terrible.
I would like to see you know how in the overview map you have all the icons all scattered in the map? I would like to see the icon and the type of the tank, like the name of the tank.
Are you talking about when it's in the lower corner, or are you talking about when you make it big?
When you make it big.
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
And then you
more
see,
real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea.
I'm gonna file myself a ticket.
There you go.
Woo! Powers. Cyberlog. Any plans to combine West-East server to one? Combining them will help increase player populations on that server to maximize the best matchmaking.
I'm making that face of, I don't know. There's been stuff that's been talked about, and I don't know what plans I can and can't talk about. So we always discuss the best way to optimize our hardware to make sure everyone's having the best experience. I think that's vague enough that I'm going to apologize for giving a vague answer and ask you to move on, because I don't know what else I can say.
Okay. No worries. Well, we can do follow-ups too.
Okay.
Mazingo13, will console ever see the artillery SPG changes that were implemented on PC? They are extremely broken and inconsistent right now because you'll have some games where you can't hit a thing due to RNG and you do next to nothing to help your team. Then you'll have games where most of your shots hit and you carry the entire match, as well as hit some heavies for nearly all of their health in one shot. A support class, which is what artillery is, should be more balanced than this and less extreme. The PC RD changes would do a lot to remedy this. That was a large question.
RD balance will be part of that big balance I talked about previously. RD stun rounds are not coming. I've said that before, and that's absolutely true. So if you're in love with those, I'm sorry, they're not going to be in console. The RD cam and the RD marker, where you can put in 3 space. I'm shooting here, guys, friends, not enemy. Haha. Those are things we are discussing and trying to implement, and those are also the things we are not implementing, just to be completely truthful.
Dun dun. Reason 222. What factors led to the decision of not implementing a method to allow players to choose what game types they would like to participate in. There are a lot of vocal players who would greatly enjoy having the option to choose whether they load into a standard battle, encounter battle, team destruction, or assault game mode.
I kind of think I covered this before, but we would need, if we added that, a way to govern that on and off based on server population. Because one of my concerns there is maintaining balanced matches within the pool of vehicles within the tier range that the machine has available to select from. And the pure answer there is the smaller that pool is made, even with like a gigantic population base, the harder the machine has to work, or the longer you guys have to wait before you get into the game that you want to play and earn your silver and XP. And not only that, the longer everyone else that may not have touched those options have to wait because you're opting out of something that other people don't even know they can or have just jumped into. So if that makes sense, like I really enjoy all of our players, and we have a really healthy population across both the Xbox and the PSN environment. But I will acknowledge that we are nowhere near the population of the Russian PC audience, which I believe at one time they had over 1% of the entire population of Russia playing simultaneously.
That's true.
That is a few people. That's a lot of people. I would love to have those kind of numbers. But yeah, until the machine won't starve itself out with those kind of features, we're just not going to do it, because one option that one person selects could impact a lot of people.
Cool. Thanks, Jeff. The Mac Dizzle 13. Hi, Jeff. Will we ever receive a Tier 8 premium British tank with preferential matchmaking up to Tier 9?
The Mac Dizzle 13. Hello, right back at you. One doesn't occur to me right away, but there's got to be something. That's a weird question. The amount of tanks fire hosing through the pipeline that is our task tracking system, Jira. There's also been tanks that we've either delayed because of an issue. There's also tanks that got created that we just shot in the face and flushed down the toilet. So like there's and then there's other vehicles and there's event vehicles. I just don't remember all of them implicitly. So within that criteria, do you need a Heimlich?
No. Yeah,
okay. Within that criteria, just not one pops to my head.
He always crack a joke when I'm drinking water.
I wait in the periphery. I wait until I see it.
Yeah, you save the good ones. So Boston, the new crew portraits have not been up to the quality and in the style of the old ones. Will we ever get more old-style crew portraits, especially for nations that have few options at the moment?
One, yes, more crew portrait awesomeness is coming. Two, I know right now that there is iteration on the ones that exist to see if there's improvements that we are willing to do and publish. And the reason I say willing to do and publish is there are people that have acquired and used those brand new portraits that like them because they chose to spend their gold or a crew customization voucher to put those on their crew. And now that that exists in that way, we always have to ask ourselves a question of, while we improve this for everyone else, are we lowering or crapping on an experience that someone else is already enjoying? So whether the solution to that is make another set that's very similar but has the aesthetic you're requiring, or just brand new people and leave the old ones in as is, that's TBD, but that's stuff we're working on.
Yeah, you know what? When I was logging the feedback from the forums, you're absolutely right. You know, changing something that someone already purchased, it's kind of like, you wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want anyone doing that to content that I purchased.
That's super high risk. And honestly, if we did that, we'd have to consider, or at least talk about some sort of refund policy, because you've literally spent money on something that we changed after you spent.
True that.
Aesthetically.
Space Wolf 1, Windows 10 version with Xbox Play Anywhere features, cross-save and cross-play in the future. I know there is a classic World of Tanks on PC, but there's a lot of World of Tanks Blitz, so why not a World of Tanks console Xbox Win 10 version?
Oh, I'd love to do that. So there's this place called Cyprus. You should give them a call and tell them you want to do that. Those kind of things are obviously decisions and business decisions that I get asked about for efficacy. That specific one, I have no details on, nor can I tell you, like, yeah, that's a business plan. I'm not saying I'm being vague. I'm saying that's never come to my desk is, what do you think of this business plan? But it's an interesting idea.
Smoketimus Prime, fun gamer tag. One of these things I hear complained, and mostly by people I play the game with, is my teams are really playing terribly. Why does the matchmaker not take something like personal rating or another skill proxy into account?
It's very similar to the filtering yourself out of the specific game modes, is giving the matchmaker as many options as possible. It does try to give you a match that increases or decreases in challenge, mostly done through the tier level of the match based on your previous personal experiences. It also tries to make sure that you're not playing the same map over and over based on map weighting. And it does a lot of criteria. So it does some of that. I'm not going to lie to you and say there's any kind of skill-based matchmaking that's literally going on there. It's not that, that kind of algorithm is not being run. It is an interesting idea. One pro tip is if you can ever land on the red team, you can finally wreck that green team that's been screwing with you this whole time. You'll notice all the great players are on the red team. Stop being on the green team. It's a joke. I'm not calling you a bad player. I'm making a joke for the whole audience. I wanted to make that clear. I'm not personally singling anyone out. Look at my stats and mock me.
I love how you had to clarify.
Well, I've had people say, go to hell.
Because government, they take you seriously. You've quoted the lead game designer. Go into the other team.
So like a couple of these people I've actually pulled up. By the way, I have what I'll call the keys of the kingdom. I can see everything about everyone's account. Not that I abuse that, but like some of these people I did look up to give context of how skilled players. Almost every single person here is a badass. Sorry for saying ass, but like, except for you. No, except for me. You're good. I'm terrible. But yeah, high quality players here.
Nick Orso, how come it's 360 days premium for a purchase and not 365?
Math on the purchase price of gold that we wanted to give. You also may or may not remember, depending on when you joined us, that the max amount of premium time that we allow you to have stored got upped.
Yes.
I think it's
to 5 years.
5 years.
We
of
do
premium.
have players with 5 years.
Yeah, I want to do the analytics. Like, so
thank you for believing in us. Yay!
It's just math. It's monetization math. Like 360, and then like, you know what? If we had it nailed just for a year, here comes leap year every 4, just screwing with us.
More Pito, when hitting the back button to view team rosters and the map, can you implement the zoom on the map that makes it full screen?
Oh, you want to get rid of the team composition bars on the left and right and just make it big? Genuine, honest question. First answer is yes, we could. We have no plans. Honest question is, why do you want that? Is it low res and you can't see what the details are? Do you want to take a pretty screenshot?
I think
all of these are valid reasons, but I would want to know why. Like, I'm hoping that map is giving you all the information you need. Like, take a screenshot and clip it out.
I think it would also, for example, a suggestion that I just said about adding the name of the tank per icon.
In Mega Map.
Yeah.
I call that Mega Map.
No, yeah.
The full cards of the table, I don't remember what we literally call it in the game.
I call it Overview Map.
I always called it Mega Map.
Okay.
Mini Map, Mega Map, but whatever. Yeah.
I think that would work if you get rid of all the gamer tags, but you only keep tank icons with the tank name.
Interesting. Also keep in mind, it's usually a square, and you're on a 16:9 aspect ratio, so we couldn't fill it without clipping some stuff out.
Yeah, that would also disable the game profiles too. So if you wanted to keep an eye on who's playing or add someone as a friend or send him a message of great game. Yeah,
how many kills did that guy who just killed me got?
Death211. There you go.
One.
Hey Jeff, I'm an aspiring game programmer, currently trying to get better at making games in general. Currently, one of my goals is to apply to the office in Austin, Texas. I was wondering if there was any way for me to get assistance with becoming a better programmer and one day hit that goal. Currently working with Unreal Engine, which I know y'all do not run on. But since I can't use the engine y'all use, it's the closest I've gotten. Currently, I'm applying on completing my courses and applying within the next year. Is there anything you can help me to get a head start? Anything would be appreciated. Oh my God, that's a cool question, and thank you for wanting to join the wargaming team.
I don't want to answer this question. I'm kidding. I love these kind of questions. God, I'm a lead designer, so a lot of the times my career advice has been design focused, but there's a lot of abstractions that help any discipline. One of the biggest things that helps anyone getting into the game industry, whether you're applying at wargaming or anywhere else, I almost gave a bunch of plugs to our competitors, but like anywhere that's not wargaming or wargaming, we see so many resumes from across all different disciplines. One of the biggest things that makes a huge difference is having something that the person you're applying to or the company you're applying to can actually get their hands on and play. So if you're working on Unreal or if you're working on Unity, you said Unreal, a compiled executable with whatever game, or even like if you're like hey, here, because you said you're an engineer, I don't know if you want to be a gameplay engineer or like an engine programmer or where your specific desires within gameplay engineering or game engineering lies. Show us your memory allocator. Show us a cool little mini game that has an interface, and not just us, anybody that you're applying to. That goes a long way. Within our engineer group, there are very rigorous engineering questions and tests that are given both before you're physically in our office and while you're here. Like you'll have to do code on whiteboards, or they'll ask you to spot something wrong with something they've written, or something as simple as when would you use a list versus an array, stuff like that. All of that stuff is stuff, especially for an engineer I'd practice on. But yeah, I made this thing, I put it in front of people, I got this feedback and I changed it this way. Here's my resume. Oh, you'll rise way above everyone else that's just got paper like that. I almost guarantee it. There you go.
Cool. Thank you. Palm Wallaby, will the Warhammer 4K tanks be coming to console? Question mark.
Why limit us to just tanks, man? 40K's got Space Marines and Terminator armor, and
I love me some Space
man,
Marines.
I want Gene Stealers. I want the orcs. No plans. I'm using silliness. Like there are no plans. And honestly, if there were plans, which I'm not aware of, that would involve licensing details, and I would really not be able to just say, I'm going to talk about it right now. But none of that exists right now. Those are some sick aesthetic designs, though. Are you a big 40K or Warhammer fan?
Casual.
Cool. That's cool.
That's cool. Sig Taker 2, hello Jeff. Will we ever get a vehicle enrichment features like World Tank Splits? I would enjoy the opportunity to pay some extra silver on my M4 Jackson or T44 in conjunction with premium time.
Oh, those are like kind of similar to full cards on the table. I'm not 100% familiar with the vehicle enhancement system of Watts Blitz. Badly designed or no biscuit. It's in our own company, one of our own products. I'm a terrible human being. What I think there are, and if this is way off base, I know everyone will tell me, and so I apologize ahead of time, is what I'll abstract to vehicle-specific boost ops. I think that's what they are. That's an interesting idea, but we're not exploring it right now. Or I'm really wrong, and you guys will let me know.
Stephen Horn, could you add something new to the game? Perhaps a new game mode, new premiums that aren't just regular tanks with paint on them, or something else really truly new. I love the game, but good gosh, it does get old sometimes.
Earlier, Adsero and Free from Compulsion were asking about what's going to bring people in and what are we going to do that's unique console content. You too need to stand by, and we'll love 2018 with a question like this.
Dun dun dun. Crescent Wolf 26. Are there any plans to give the previously released Girls on Panzer 4 a special crew similar to the Valkyria tanks? And if so, would people who bought the tank in the past be able to get said crew free of charge?
No, I don't think we're actually adding a crew to that anytime soon. There's nothing really
Licensing
technically
again.
stopping us. Business-wise, exactly. But I like the idea. God, more crew portraits, better.
Tactical Angel, are you working on any new tank lines that you can tell us anything about and that we have not already seen in the World of Tanks PC release schedule? You're gonna go back
Earlier,
to that? Oh my God!
Adsero and Free
Hey.
from Compulsion asked questions.
You told me to, ask all the questions.
No, I appreciate it.
But
I'm
it's
really selling this one hard now. Like every time that comes up, and I'm like, oh, just you wait. These are all related, and I can't talk about it.
English, can we have a more interactive garage? I would love to be able to walk around and see all my tanks next to each other as a whole collection at once, or even all my tanks in one single nation at once.
Okay, I will answer one specific question about that. Is like, I want more tanks loaded than just the one that currently has focus in the tank carousel. Originally, when we launched on the 360, there was just a pure technical limitation of being able to assemble multiple tanks within the garage towards the packages that you specifically had them equipped. I think that technical limitation is no longer there for all the platforms, including 360. Now it becomes garage real estate. Like, honestly, if we shoved max 30 vehicles, because that's the max we have active in a multiplayer batch, right? Like in the current garage, I don't care if it's the SD or the HD garage, like you'd have bunk beds of tanks. So we would have to redesign the garage to get those in there. But that's a really cool idea.
A couple players were sharing, and not recently, but it was something that I logged in our current data system. They would have liked to collect things like stamps, or, you know, we can say this because it's not a direct competitor. For example, Smash Brothers, they have all the statues that you can just scroll and look at. Players kind of want to see more of that stuff, like collectibles, art, concept art, and add it into the game.
Like actually physically in the garage?
Yeah.
Well, that'd be super cool. I remember, and I can also say this just because it's not a competitor, and I was playing it just because I wanted to be scared, and I actually kind of enjoyed it. Like in the Evil Within franchises, you can find like a coffee cup, and then you frob it, and it's like, oh, hey, this coffee cup. And then when you go back to your home base, it's just sitting on a desk. That's some cool stuff. Those are interesting ideas. There's nothing like that going on right now. And no, the Evil Within coffee cup's not going to be in the World of Tanks garage. But those are interesting ideas.
Alexius, will the black tanks or those tanks with the crew bonuses, they don't have to be black, specifieds, come back for sale?
We sell new tanks all the time. I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, when we sold those black tanks, we were like, this is it. Get them now or never get them. And everyone who owns a black tank, if we ever all of a sudden go, we were lying, will not be happy.
Yeah, no, but for some reason there's been an influx of players asking for the black tanks to be back.
They're freaking cool, and they're really juicy earners.
Well, now I feel like we are getting to the time where collectors are actually coming out and say, I'm missing these, I need help. So I think it's a matter of collectors than just player wanting to buy them for the sake of buying them.
Here's what would be interesting. For people that own black tanks only, are you cool if other people suddenly have access to them? Yes or no?
We have to ask permission from,
well, that's
that is valid. That is valid, yes.
And also, if I put on my selfish hat, like, we're a business, and I love giving the players stuff they want, and I love being able to pay the rent and sit in this office building. And so if people want those tanks, awesome. We made promises. Every time I see a black tank, I'm like, good on that person. That's an awesome vehicle. I want to make sure that they're cool with it before we consider whether or not we're going to do it, and also regardless of their feedback. I also don't want to say, you're holding the keys to the kingdom. If you say no, we won't do it, because the second I promise you that, my boss will say, sell them, and I'll be like, oops. But it would be interesting to know how you'd feel about that.
You should send a survey to only tanks, players that own the black in black.
Owners.
You cool with it? Yes or no?
Is this an exclusive members only club? Current members of said club. Or are we opening these doors, ladies and gentlemen? What saith you? And it has to say saith.
There. We only have 3 questions left on this part 1. Can you believe it's part 1? And that's a lot of questions.
This is cooking with gas.
Yeah, I know. It's really hot in here because of the lights and the temperature outside.
And I'm wearing I'm an idiot. I'm wearing this.
Sino and I, can you add some sort of functionality where one can start the game and end up in the garage without clicking anything? This would be in game. This would be if the game was up to date, etc. Like 99% of the time you play. Setting to activate direct logging to garage.
Oh, so I don't have the game loaded at all.
No.
And I'm either on the PS4 or the Xbox whatever dashboard, and I select World of Tanks, and it just smashes me right in the garage. One thing that would have to happen for that to happen is the launcher would have to be able to tell the game, or ask the game to be more accurate, are you different? Yes, no. If no, skip launcher. And the only way that could happen is if the launcher loaded. So at the very least, it would have to load the launcher, not show you any interface, but a loading menu, and then instantaneously load the game, if that makes sense. And by launcher, for those who are not sure what I'm talking about, and I'm not trying to insult your intelligence, I'm just trying to be clear for everybody, it's the screen that shows you the news and the tank attack minigame, and press this button to play World of Tanks, and then shows you the download speed and rate if you're downloading, blah, blah, blah. So that's one. The second thing is once you got past that hurdle, now legally we have to check with all of the logos we're using to see A, is there any new ones that we're legally mandated to show? And B, are there any that we can skip? And then C, we'd have to decide, is it cool to just put you in the previous game mode? A classic example is you log in, someone goes, hey, let's go play team training, and you're playing team training, and then you lose power in your house. I know this is an edge case, but I'm trying to use it as an example. You come back in next time, and you're booting, and now you're in the team training garage. What the F? Like, do we go right to the main game mode select menu, or do we go right into the garage? Those are some of the things we'd have to consider before we did that. None of that is actually in development right now. I'm just giving you my off-the-cuff neurons and what they are telling me to say.
Hucky Joe, will Wargaming consider a different monetization model? I would rather pay a standard game price with better tank tree progression, more maps, custom game times, and matchmaking. I love tanks in general, but World of Tanks matchmaking sucks all the joy out of it for me.
No. I mean, World of Tanks on the console is a free-to-play multiplayer game that has single or co-op elements for like Proving Grounds and War Stories. And that's what all of our players are investing in and continue to enjoy. And that's what the game is. Like I totally appreciate what you're describing. What almost sounds like a box product to me is like download a disc or buy a disc or downloading a game from the server of either PSN or XBL. I love a lot of those games. I think I just mentioned The Evil Within. I actually downloaded that, but no, that's just not what we are. So I wouldn't. That's not going to come for World of Tanks anytime soon.
Player Lemonhead, he's actually one of our cool players in Reddit.
Cool player.
Cool player. Why in some respect, am I reading it right? Yeah. Why in some respects do you say your own game when making decisions to balance tanks differently than PC, but then use so much of the PC systems in new updates? It does feel like you copy the content of the PC, but don't apply the same meta and changes to the tanks to meet the new updates. Either we are our own game or are we just delayed PC version? Which do you see us as?
Oh man, we're actually both. We built the game from the ground up using 4 point something. I don't remember which big world server we started with. And had to make a lot of adjustments for what we wanted the console game to be in terms of speed and action. And what I'm specifically remembering is way back in the day, the lower tier tanks got rotation and acceleration buffs so that it didn't feel as much like you were as a garbage can with a handgun pointed out the window. As the PC game makes features that we do integrate into big world versions, we do cherry pick features that we like from them and features that we want to modify from them and features that we don't want to use. So specifically, like I'll talk about in this previous video, I talked about the stun rounds that we're not going to do. We also add a lot of features that they either have utilized or taken or have been influenced by, and in some cases expanded upon. Like ribbons were born in World of Tanks console, and then I believe the next product that used them was either World of Warships PC or Blitz. I don't remember which. It's basically an interaction between all of the wargaming developers. So I wouldn't at this point say we're 100% unique, because then you would just roll your eyes because you're like, well, you have a mouse and you have a T1 Cunningham and you have a T195 and so do they. T95, not T195. Write that down, we need a T195. It's kind of both. And there are, just so you know, and you may already be aware of this, there are forums in the CIS region and in other places that PC players are screaming at the tanks team going like, why aren't you using the console's balance? You've ruined everything since version blah, blah, blah. They didn't take those changes and they made these changes, which we like better. How come they get all the sweet stuff? And then they get the war stories and then they get these cool hero tanks and all this stuff. And all of these maps. Thanks for reminding me.
Welcome.
Every development team is responsible for making their version of World of Tanks the best for the hardware it plays on, and is given enough rope, leeway, autonomy to both ask the other teams for help and, hey, I like that system, can we use it? And also to say, that's really cool, I'm glad it's working for you, we don't want to do it, here's why. That's not a simple, quick answer.
It's an honest one.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can't give you we're 100% console. PC's a thing of the past. No, nor can I say we're a port, because we're not. I mean, you pointed out. We are the World of Tanks console, which was born from the PC version. Toxin is influenced by the PC version as well as vice versa, and is the best the team can make it for where it is right now.
that was a great answer and a great question to end our first part for Q&A with Jeff Gregg, lead game designer of World Tanks console.
Thank God I'm wearing a black shirt. It is hot in here.
Yeah, no, it is.
I would have just flashed stains to everybody. Ugh.
Well, the thing is, yesterday it was 30-some degrees outside in Chicago. We are at 70.
And it's supposed to snow on Monday.
Yeah, and it's supposed to snow on Monday, so we are dying because we are still under the heating system of winter, yet it is summer outside, so, and then these lights don't help us. We're dying. Yay!
Right. I'm going to go randomly just give low black tanks to random accounts. I'm kidding. I'm not going to do that. Don't get excited.
Yeah, TJ will come here.
Yeah, I'll get
yell at
fired.
us.
I likely might, actually. I can't just give away crap.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining. Next week, we're going to run the second part of the Q&A session with Jeff Gregg, and hope you like it. We are a ton of questions away from finishing, so we'll stick around next week. Again, 3 p.m. Central Time here on Facebook, Weekly Assault. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Thank you.